Hey everybody, today is January 11th. This is Natural Resources. I'm Mr. Sheridan. Hope you all had a great weekend. And we are going to run through a presentation about defining what agriculture is. So for this unit on exploring careers and your future and that sort of thing, we are going to focus some of that time on agriculture, food, and natural resources, AFNR. Agriculture, food, and natural resources careers. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that actually means today. So we've got a short presentation on what it is, defining agriculture, what exactly it is, what careers that we're talking about, so that as we go forward over the next few weeks and we're talking about and you're looking for careers in agriculture, you can understand what that word means and how broad of a scope that you get to include under the title of agriculture. So as we run through this, those folks that are in class, feel free to throw questions in the chat and I will try to get to them as best I can. But we're going to run through our presentation on defining agriculture. So what we're going to learn about today is we are going to define the word agriculture and the components of that industry. Okay, what it is, what the scope of the American agriculture industry is, and then we're going to focus on Michigan a little bit too. What and we can define that in a few different ways. We're going to talk about that, how we actually define the scope of American and Michigan agriculture in a few different ways, such as land use, economic impact, and the amount of employees that there are in those industries. And then we want to understand the important contributions that agriculture makes to all of our daily lives. A lot of these words you're going to be relatively familiar with. Producers and consumers are, middle school and early high school science words that we've used before. Particularly, we're going to focus on arable land and fiber. Those may be words that you haven't heard as much. We're going to focus a lot on what commodities are. You probably heard that word before, but we're going to focus on that a little bit today so that you understand what a commodity is, and in the context of agriculture, what you're actually doing. So as it relates to the word commodity. So what is agriculture? I imagine that many of you, when you think of agriculture, you're thinking of something like this picture right here. You got an old barn, cows in the background, a bunch of hay bales all along the fence row. So we're going to try to at least broaden that scope just a little bit, or that definition a little bit, and talk about what the actual word agriculture means. So this is an interesting picture, I think, because first of all, I like cows, but these are all Brahman influenced cattle. They may be crossbred, but you can see some interesting looking horns back in there. But this would be a feedlot somewhere in Texas, maybe, where they have more Bos Indicus cattle influence. Bos Indicus being type breeds of cattle that have more skin, they've got a hump, they've got larger sheaths, all the things that are designed and have adapted because they are in hotter climates. So interesting that it showed a picture of a feedlot with Brahman cattle in it. I think that's interesting. All right, so what is agriculture? Here's our definition that we're looking for. It is the art, the science, and the business of cultivating plants, animals, and other life forms for use by humans to sustain life. So we're talking about all of the things that humans raise or make or build in order to make our lives better. So how do we determine the scope of, we're going to start with American agriculture. We are going to focus on Michigan agriculture a little later in this presentation. How do we measure our American agriculture? So there's three categories. We could talk about the amount of land that is used for agriculture. We could talk about the amount of money or the economic impact of the agricultural industry. And we can talk about the number of people that are employed in agriculture in the United States. So when we start to break down some fractions of how much land is available for agriculture. So we know that 75% of the world is covered in oceans, water, but mostly oceans. And so half of the remaining quarter, so we're talking about an eighth of the Earth's surface, is used for some type of agriculture, whether that's just grazing cattle or any sort of livestock, whether that would include your national parks, that includes your rainforest, that includes your forests up north. That's going to include all of those things. Arable land, this is one that maybe not everyone has heard before, is the term that's used to describe the land that is suitable for growing crops. So this would take forests out of that. This would take out some mountain or some areas of ground that you could graze livestock on, but there's not enough water, or there's another reason why it's not suitable for growing crops. So only a 1/32 of Earth's surface is actually arable land. And even that 1/32 is in danger because we're dealing with a population increase. Therefore, we are dealing with development and people moving away from large cities. And that is eating into that arable land number already. So proper management of agricultural land is critical to the success of the agricultural industry. So we have a way to do that. So we either need to get more efficient on less ground, or we need to somehow maintain the ground that we have available to us. The economic impact of agriculture. So there's a lot of numbers in here. You're going to want to go down to on your quiz that you should be filling out. If you joined us late, there is a quiz that is in your Google Classroom that you should be filling out as we go through this. One of the multiple choice questions at the bottom deals with a lot of these numbers, and you can cross those off as you go through this. So agriculture accounts for approximately 10% of all the money spent on trade worldwide, meaning buying and selling of goods. $7.2 trillion in agricultural goods are sold each year around the world. The economic influence of agriculture varies by country. American agriculture accounts for more than $775 billion in sales every single year. And we actually export $140 billion annually. So you can do a little math there and find that we've got $635 billion in agricultural sales just within the United States. 1 in 5 jobs, sorry, we're going the wrong way. 1 in 5 jobs in the United States is somehow connected to agriculture. So you can talk about, you've got, looks like a farmer and a vet on your left, and then a lab tech on the right that is, doing some plant propagation or somehow dealing with some plant science information. So we're going to talk more about food and fiber. There's so many different areas that people can get involved in and can get employed within the agricultural industry. Let's talk about what a commodity is. So a commodity is a raw material that can be bought and sold. That's it. So corn, wheat, cows, tomatoes are all examples of agricultural commodities. Another commodity that's bought and sold around the world is oil. Another commodity that's bought and sold around the world are things like diamonds or gold, are all raw materials that can be bought and sold. So those are commodities. Agriculture is driven by 3 main commodity areas. So most agricultural commodities fall into either food, fiber, or natural resources. I'm going to start with food. Food includes all the materials and substances that we use for human consumption, things that sustain us, things that we eat. Food production includes the growing, harvesting, processing, distribution, marketing, and sales of all products used for human consumption. So for those of you who are not interested in going to a farm, raising crops, raising things that people are going to eat every day, you're going to notice that there's a whole lot of other things in here that people are involved in the food industry, such as processing, distribution, marketing, and sales, all fall within the agricultural industry because you're selling products that are produced by agriculture. Fiber. This one gets a little dicey too, that maybe not everybody quite understands exactly what fiber means. So obviously we're talking about something, a fiber is a product with long, thin components that is used to create woven or composite materials. And a composite material is just something that's made up of other materials. So we're talking about something that is made into something long and thin that's then used to create something else. Most of the time we're talking about thread, yarn, cotton, that sort of thing that's used to make clothes and blankets and all the things that we have, around us. But obviously we can also use wool, but the other thing that falls into that category is pulpwood. So when we actually grind down that pulpwood, put it into thin components, and then that's what gets pressed so that we can make paper and other pulpwood products. So we want to make sure that that's not forgotten when we're thinking about that those trees that are being grown for pulpwood are actually a fiber product, not necessarily a lumber product. And then natural resources, which is the third area of agricultural commodities, are materials and substances that occur in nature, such as minerals, wood, water, and wildlife. Living organisms such as fish, deer, plants, and mushrooms can also be considered a natural resource when they occur naturally in nature. However, some of those kind of walk that line, things like aquaculture, meaning that people are raising fish in order to sell in a confined environment. Obviously, that would not be a natural resource. I've got a neighbor over by me that is actually raising deer to be reintroduced in gaming areas and that sort of thing, trying to make big bucks and that sort of stuff. Not necessarily a natural resource. That would fall into a different category in agriculture. So what commodities can be bought and sold, or what commodities, which are raw materials that can be bought and sold, do you think are produced in Michigan? I'll give you a hint. There's a whole bunch of them. Okay. Michigan produces more than 300 commercial commodities, including all the things that are listed here. We'll give you a second to look through that list. Sugar, cherries, milk, beans, potatoes, grapes, perennials, meaning flowers, eggs, and blueberries. The only state that produces more commodities than Michigan is California. You're going to need to know that for your sheet. So we are second in the country. Of all 50 states, we produce more stuff than everybody except for California. The food and agricultural industry contributes $101.2 billion annually to the state's economy, and there are 10 million acres of farmland in Michigan. So again, when we talk about careers in ag, food, and natural resources, this would be another example of someone who's not necessarily working on a farm, but involved in the agricultural industry. Somebody who's working in this processing facility. Not exactly sure what they're making here. Looks like some sort of a dressing or something, but they're packaging that, and that would obviously be related to agriculture. Our food and agricultural industry employs more than 923,000 Michiganders, which is about 22% of the state's employees. How we interact with agriculture can be categorized in one of two roles. We've talked about this before. So every single one of us, because we eat food, is a consumer. So we're all consuming something that's related to agriculture. But these producers can be anyone who is defined as those who are actively involved in raising raw agricultural commodities and products for the purpose of resale. So we're all at least, so some are both, but all of us would be considered consumers of agricultural products. Why is agriculture important to our daily lives? Because it provides us with the food, fiber, and fuel we need every day. It makes it possible for families to not have to grow their own food. So in 1776, when our country was founded, 90% of the population lived on a farm. They were producers. They produced some sort of agricultural good. But today, less than 2% of the population farms. And we also employ more than 22 million people in agriculture. Agriculture provides us with resources that we might not realize are connected to agriculture. All of these things are produced by people in the agricultural industry somehow. All of these things that are contributed into these products that we interact with and that we buy and sell every single day are a part somehow of the agriculture, food, and natural resources industry. It's definitely more than just farming. Everyone is affected by agriculture every day, and we know that we couldn't survive without agriculture. So that is the end of our presentation for today. I hope that you all took something away from that, at least talking just about our definition of what agriculture is. And for those of you who were following along, you should have gotten your quiz finished up. Make sure that you finish that, get it turned in. This recording will be posted in our Google Classroom very shortly, so you can go back and reference that if you need to. Otherwise, I would like to hang out and talk with the folks that are interested in participating in leadership contests after class for just a few minutes, and we will talk about what your next steps are and when we can meet in person to kind of go over your presentations or speeches so that we can get them dialed in the right direction and maybe give you some different directions for where you need to go as we move forward. So if you have questions, go ahead and throw those out, but we'll shut the recording down and we'll see you all back here again tomorrow. Have a great day.